Hello, welcome to lecture 5, Media and Crisis Management course. The date is 22 of March 2020. In this lecture, we will discuss the crisis management phases. In the lecture number 4, we discussed the main concept of the crisis management definition and phases, but in this lecture, we will take them in detail. The crisis management phases are 3 phases: before the crisis, response during the crisis, and feedback after the crisis. Then accordingly, in this lecture, we will discuss in detail the 3 phases of the crisis management plan or the crisis management actions that the organization take. This will raise the importance of having crisis management before the crisis happen. And then we will take a response actions or a response strategies to limit the damages during the crisis. And after that, we will have a feedback phase after the crisis happen. Okay, we will start with phase 1. It's preparing before the crisis. In this phase, we will discuss how the organization should be prepared, should be ready for any crisis before it happens. We have many steps to take for the crisis readiness. We have to have effective management before the crisis happen. We have to be aware that we may face any potential problems, whether internally or externally. This will help us to have a speed recovery of the crisis once it goes. To identify the potential crisis or to identify the potential problems that may happen inside or outside the organization, or to analyze the company state of readiness, to materialize all the materialistic and the human resources that the organization have to be ready once the crisis happen, to take the strict procedures or to take the strict actions or the right decisions to take to contain the situation, checking the crisis readiness of our team, to build the team, to build the structure of the crisis management team, to research about the company or the organization record. The organizational record or the previous crisis history of the organization, it will be too much important in this phase, as we will have to have early warning systems based on the detection of the threats that had the organizational before, or to define the emergency or contingency plan. Then we will have to maintain the equipment and supplies. We will have to build the image of the key leaders, to review the social media and the traditional media status, to examine the strengthened by the relationships, and to schedule the media training sessions. After that, we will have the crisis response phase. In the crisis response phase, we have 4 main points: detection of the crisis, monitoring or reviewing the development, selection of the appropriate plan or the right plan, the ensuring of the cooperation. And in this phase, when the management must actually respond to the crisis, the post-crisis phase looks for ways to better prepare for the next crisis, and then we will have to follow up, then we will have to choose or to select and to execute the pre-planned continuous actions that were already prepared in the first phase. The third phase is the feedback phase. Here we will have to analyze the situation and to discover the weakness and the strength features or factors, to overcome the negative things and to build on the positive sides. In the next lecture, or the lecture number 7, we will talk about the crisis response strategies and how the organization will choose the right response strategy. Okay. Why public relations is important during the crisis? The public relations department or the marketing department is the most valuable department or the most valuable members in the crisis times. Why? They are the people who are responsible to create messages, and each audiences need a different message accordingly with the relation or the interest with the organization. So they will have better dealing with the internal and external publics during the crisis rather than the normal times. They will be able to choose the right tools, whether traditional or new media tools. They will be able to know or uphold or maintain the organization reputation by communicating with the stakeholders and target publics. Then we are going to discuss or to explain a new concept, which is the crisis management plan. The crisis management plan is a main component of the crisis management. We have to put a plan. The plan is very important. What is the crisis management plan definition? It refers to a detailed plan which describes the various actions which need to be taken during the critical situations or the incident or whatever. Good plan should be done based on a specific goals or objectives. We put the timetable for the tasks, what we need to do, who will do this, and when and how. Planning for a crisis is very important. Why planning is important? As it will help the organization to know the progression. It will help the organization to know the development of the situation, to analyze the impact, to discover the problems, to know the way we should choose to talk to the audiences, whether internal or external audiences. It's very important to think rationally and to devise strategies during this writing the communication plan during the crisis. It will be very important to know who will be represented in putting the crisis management plan. It will be discussed. When we need to know who put the crisis management plan, any plan prepared by superiors, by the board of directors, by the members of the crisis management team, but who would be represented in the crisis management team structure? Who put the crisis management plan? Next lecture, we are going to talk about the CMT, which is the crisis management team. This will be our main topic, the next lecture. Their features, their responsibilities, who should be represented in the crisis management team structure. But we have to know so far that the employees have to be represented in the crisis management team structure to help the organization to overcome the crisis in the best possible way. Why we need the crisis management plan? We need the crisis management plan to have a positive approach during the crisis or the emergency situation. It will elaborate the actions to be taken. It will represent the crisis management team. It will show the actions and the pre-situation actions and the reactions after the situation happen. The crisis management plan will protect the organization from any expected harm and also makes its future secure. The plan will reduce the instability, will reduce the damaging, will reduce any harms related to its reputation or image. We have features for any crisis management plan. The crisis management plan should be made in the presence of all members of the crisis management team. So it's very important that anyone represented in the crisis management team will have a valuable information, will have a valuable inputs and suggestions. It should be important to depend on their information or their background or their experiences. So we will have to represent as well the board of directors, the people who are taking decisions during the crisis and after the crisis. Number two, crisis management plan should take into account all identified problem dimensions. So we will have to suggest a possible solution for all of them. It will be very important not to neglect any dimension of the problem, any dimension of the crisis. We will have to represent every dimension and every factor happening inside the organization during the crisis, not only focusing on the problem itself. We will have to focus on the relationship recovery with all the stakeholders. We have to focus on repairing the image. We have to focus on reworking on the business routine and the production and the pricing strategies. We have to focus on fixing and managing the relationship with the media. Number three, making sure that the plan are realistic and solve the purpose of saving organizational reputation. It's very important to know that we can't put a plan which is not matching the real actions, which is not matching the objectives, which is not matching the materials or the resources that the organization have, or the overall strategy with their marketing or general strategy of the organization. How to make the crisis management plan? Number one, we have to identify the problem dimension. We will have to put all the factors that led to the problem. We will have to discuss the dimensions and the issues and the open discussions for everyone to share their information and to opinion. We will have to ensure that we have the accurate information. We will have to double and triple check the information, because the information is the most valuable resource during the crisis. If the information is duplicated or the information is not too much accurate, it will lead to a wrong crisis response strategy. It will lead to mistrust between the organization and the stakeholder. It will lead to different or negative consequences on the organization. Crisis management plan should not only focus on ways to overcome crisis, but also on making a long-term processes to avoid emergency situation in the future. It's very important not to put the plan to make a short time effect. We will have to focus on the long decisions, the long situation, the long-term processes, the long-term effects. If we do this, we will guarantee that if the crisis repeated or if we have similar situation in the future, we will take the right decisions without any headache or planning. Now we will have to take the second assignment for the course. The second assignment is about a case study analysis, and then you will see that we have a case study like the previous lecture about an Odwalla juice outbreak in 1996. Here you have an information, enough information about the crisis. You will have to read it well. It's a fresh company. This is the explanation of the case study. You have to read it well. And what did the company, how did the company taking responsibility about or the communications and the external content that the organization did, and what did the organization did to fix the. And then you will have to answer the following questions. You will have to read first the case study very well, and based on the given information you will have to analyze the following. What is the type of the crisis and what is the category of the crisis? This phase is called the detection of the crisis. Detection of the crisis, like just what we have done before. Then you will have to say what are the main management actions that the organization did. In points, you will have to analyze the management actions that the organization took is 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 3, how could you evaluate the organizational response? In this, it's a critical point of view. You will have to use your critical mind. You will have to use your analysis way of thinking, analytical way of thinking, to evaluate how did the organization respond in your point of view. Did the organization take the right decision? Did the organization choose the appropriate tools? And why do you see that it's not matching your decisions, or it's not appropriate or something? And what would you do more or different to contain the situation? Then I want you here to imagine yourself as a public relations practitioner, as the main leader of the crisis management team, the person who is taking the decision in this crisis management plan. So what if you are the responsible to take decisions inside about this action or about this incident? What would you do different? What would you do more to contain the situation? After finishing the assignment, please submit it to the course email. We have a course email, media.crisis.management@gmail.com. The due date will be sent to you by mail. Okay, thank you so much.